Alright, so I'm looking at next week's trades on the euro versus the dollar and the dollar versus the yen. So I'm trying to get my orders in place in advance. And you could have dropped them last week. You could have dropped these orders anytime, really. So Sunday night, this is my drops or my order placement. So I marked off a fair amount of different sell blocks. These aren't trade blocks; these are sell blocks. This is like imprisonment of tickets, sleeping bear traps, and we're looking for the bears to come in, and we're gonna catch a falling knife here on limits. Had you sold above any of these highs, I guess if you sold above this one, you're waiting to become in a balanced, you could say that, well, if we get out here, we know there should be buyers on the structure level, closing one period moving average here on a daily, and we should be coming into this. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a pound down here coming in, but certainly the ripe buying zone is going to be back in this little cove here. And the expiration on these tickets is basically on here is to the end of the month. And what's the rate of change? You know, what is sustainable? And there'll be a bounce. So how close to the market would you get? Because you come into Sunday night, you're pounding down at this rate of change, which is pretty insane, right? A little more tame color here. It's a little too fat. You're just ripping down, and that does happen here. Another rip down, but is this a buy? Because we're in some big uptrend. I don't know. I'd rather go for the high probability 20 pips, 40 pips, 60 pips, and when can you run these really tight ratios? Well, you could run them down here. I can't guarantee that you can experience 100 pips if you buy here, if they ever fail you. So where's a logical place? What's expectable here? Okay, I'm going to put buy limits in on the open here. And so the expiration here is going to be maybe just 4 hours, which would just represent a straight line practically. That rate of change is probably not even realistic. You know, you got tickets like this, and if you put a buy limit down here that lasts 1 hour, what do you think the chance that you're going to get filled? Mind you, this is the daily chart, so thinking time frame and what is a really good trade and what is a so what's happening here is I'm not going to rely on indicators. I'm just going to rely on the obvious, blatant obvious drama on this chart. That happens to be the daily chart, where the drama here, if you're trying to make 150 pips, you're just getting your ass annihilated, not to mention all the trend bots that see this as some big, and it is some big doji of indecision in a way compared to this rip your face off that doesn't even come back to structure. I don't know if it does back here, but this comes back in so hard that if you bought into that and just held till it retested the top of that, that is still 100 pips. If you built some dream bot, holy grail bot, based on this, and it was making so much money because it was just bippity bop, I'm just making 40 pips with a 20 pip stop, my ratios are just kick-ass, I always sell the top, I always buy the bottom. This daily chart, mind you, all this noise that blows people's minds on some level with the appropriate stop and targets is making so much money because, yeah, the ratio does matter because, right, if you put in a 20 pips, a 40 pip stop here to make 150 pips, you made it. Holy shit, you made 300 pips. You made 300 pips to here. I'm sorry, 280 pips. But you talk about buying a 20 pip window down here, which just gets nicked one day in time. It's don't forget, it's below this lonely, this unbelievable channel of how many people are triggered to go long. Well, it must be taken off now. No, you know what? Unless your trade plan includes all this noise, you're fucking blown up. It doesn't take any. I could show this to a fucking 2-year-old, just like I could show them the fact that how many people had the flu last year. So, putting your buy limits coming into anything here, I'm buying regardless of what day of the week we touch this window, and my target would be where I'm at right now. So if I do a drop, it would be, let's try to make 40 pips. These are 20 pip handles. Let's try to make this. If my buy limit starts here, the most greedy thing of buy limit here, stop here. We're trying to make it back to where we're at now. But I'm not into that because I know that trade is so far off. It's so ridiculous. It's like making appointments for people that never show up. Well, they just don't. They keep canceling their appointment. Well, we're doing really good so far. I mean, yeah, but we got an electric bill, dude. We got this fucking thing open. People are supposed to come in. Well, here comes some customers. Shh, this thing below your fucking head. Well, what's the cause and effect? This is the cause. This is the effect. And of course, once this is screaming a daily chart, I mean, this is just rip your face off consistently 8 days in a row. So this was the mini vac. I suppose this was the anything here. Like I said, if your trade plan is this, you've already made so much money. Your target may actually only include to here now, because if your targets are always 100 pips, you're never going to ride a 280 pip move, and it may look amazing here. Of course, this is a daily chart. You can drop down and get on the 4 hour. I got it. But are you going to get on the 4 hour chart here? Now, if you examine that 4 hour structure, that means you got to wake up at X because they're going to retest there. You got to get in at the retest. You never really miss the trade on the 4 hour chart because it's always kind of setting up within the next 12 hours. On the daily chart, you can kind of relax and say, well, next week I'm going to do this trade that's going to have a really wide. It's going to go back to a. You're going to trade in a thing that's very swing trade style, and the scalping there on the daily, all that noise before the explosion is. This is whole different territory. I mean, this is like going door to door and selling a toothbrush or something. And the other one is like, okay, I just bought a house and I'm trying to flip it in a month. So you're going to take way more risk if you get into a house that you're waiting. You got to make that mortgage payment. So this kind of get rich, real estate is about floating the margin on the temporary loan that you have when you're in between houses. So you have one house, you're using that to cash out and get the other house. It's no different, I'm surprised that Alex Stokes didn't take his ruler and put Fibonacci on the housing market, because he went into housing. And you just can't walk into these fields without some kind of so people they hire the proverbials, they get the classic guy that's going to be the analyst or the consultant, right? We hired this guy. I remember they hired this guy. And, the guy was slick, good handshake, certain look in the eye. And he was just completely, clueless to the personalities of these people he was dealing with. I mean, really, you have to connect with people. I guess that's what that ICT did there. He connected with some guy who's stalking him. Did you see his latest video? That's hilarious. He's like, this is a child's phone. And I'm like, the message is like, dude, dude. I mean, he's not like, I didn't hear anything offensive at all in there. Apparently, I thought it was sensitive until I saw this ICT guy. What the fuck happened there? So, something went red alert. But I'm excited about the price action, really. What used to blow my mind on these trades was the volatility. So lack of volatility here, and it still is. You can't. So if everything seems to be, your system is doing so good, like, man, this idea of buying and selling the fake breakouts on the daily, what a genius idea, right? Until the wheels come off, and you can't do that trade. So you could have done all these little tag and bags here, back and forth, back and forth. Are you up for this kind of trading, really? Are you selling new highs, you buy new lows, you sell new highs, you buy new lows, you're selling up here, I'm buying down here, every time it goes up. I'm just going to sell. Actually, when it's up, I sell. It's down, I buy. This is a beautiful world. Until here, you sell, you're like, this is a great trade. You realize you're coming into these ripe, fresh, old, less explored, and kind of actually getting narrow right just before that. And then inevitably we make this extreme low, and of course the retest. So you never miss in the entry in a way, because if your plan is to buy new lows, you're already in that trade because you have a buy limit here and you're buying into this plunge. You're just that guy that's going against. You're selling into these rallies, you're buying into the plunge. It's all fun and games until. This is why you need to have a stop on your account if you don't want to destroy the whole account. Because what if you sell here and you go, oh, this is going to, once we take out this, forget about it, it's going to the hell, and then they rip your face off, see? And the only kind of trade in here was to sell into that and make 100 pips if you were to sell every day, right? So here you finally are break even. If your first sell limit's here, this ticket only made 20 pips back to here. If you sold right on the 100. And then here, you're still waiting to be made whole, so to speak. As this comes back in, and we can expect that there's a probability we're going to come in here. So why not just place your buy limits here? That's what I'm going to do. So also, once we get down here, there'll be a chatter drama, right? We can just imagine all scenarios in here and just have to have imagination. So, or, you know what? It's going to gap open here, and it's going to rip to maybe here, and it's going to come. So you have to play what happens on the open, but obviously a bounce here of 100 pips with 20 pips stop, 40 pips stop, 40 to make 80. All sorts of ratios, a spectrum of ratios. 20 to make 40. I'm just using not the numbers I would use, because I would have 13 to make 21. You could have Fibonacci targets. I'll risk 8 pips to make 13 pips. That's nonsense. And as long as they're all different, see, and some of them are really going to be a drop that's worth $100, but it's just. You could have $100 risk, one click that has an elaborate construction of spacing of tickets. Or you're going to hand place them. I recommend hand placing them, because this is like setting up a perfect Jenga or booby trap. They used to call it booby trap. And really going to try to capture the drama of the wick. And these are set it and forget it tickets. So if you want to go to sleep, you want to go to the store, you look at your phone to see were you right or you're wrong. So you're going to find out within 8 hours, 4 hours, or 2 hours. If you place your tickets 5 pips deep and they last for a week, you're asking to get filled. You're saying, oh yeah, well, I wouldn't buy here. I would look like a fucking idiot. So I'm going to put my orders 5 pips deep. So this is the thinking on limits, is to me the only way to step into the market. So in jump rope, I don't know if there's some type of, you visually sync to what's going to happen before you jump in the jump rope. So whether you're buying or selling doesn't matter. I suppose a jump rope typically runs in one direction. Reverse jump roping, I haven't gotten into lately. Oh, plus hula hoop, you're really doing a sizing issue, so you're doing like a 3D thing. I think that's the complexity because this idea that you're going to come in and the robot could possibly adapt to the daily. I mean, how is your algorithm running here? I guess the buyers, I can see where some of this stuff, obviously, with just the right kind of, I'd say 8-period moving average, you're probably going to get in right here, right? This is going to be, wow, that's a sweet entry, everything, we were, my moving average crossover happened here, so of course I'm in this trade. And we'll be buying this pullback, but the thing is that if this kind of just dicks around here, it becomes very low momentum noise. What do you do then? Do you trap all your margin up in this trade for the rest of the week in some, well, I'm going to stick with my plan, and I guess you are, right? But what if there's little baby plans inside of this giant plan? And I think that's going to be the trick. Getting the balance between the scalps, if you want to scalp, which I think you kind of have to, you're kind of forced into it, because the nature of the market is it doesn't move in a straight line. So even inside of any of these moves is some type of 10, 20, 15 pip target. And the market comes down and it just comes down in here. And you have some scalps, so this would be your scalps, let's say. You're just going to make this many pips as the market comes down in. And this is just, you're just going to have these taken off the table. Those are your targets. And maybe you don't even make, maybe you only lose 20%. Instead of losing 100%, you lose 20%. And you're looking to make 40%. I mean, these are, I made 3% in a trade. It's just silly. I don't know how big these accounts these people are trading, but when they say they make 3%, I guess it's based on a $10,000 account, on a $100,000 account. So how big is the car you're driving? Do you drive a car that costs $100,000? I mean, I guess you could, right? So does money even mean anything at that point? You just want to get the trade right. So you just want to be right about the trade. So certainly your intellect wants to be correct. Oh, I knew this was going to tank, and I knew it would probably bounce, so I'm trading the bounce based on all the limit orders that I kind of laid in this matrix down here, and looking for them to get filled. And I am looking for it to go underwater on my swing trades by 40 pips to make 80 pips, but I'm not looking to place everything on a swing trade because there's so many. You should be able to trade on one instrument everybody's trade plan. Not everybody's, but see everybody's what's going on. So the market opens when the euro dollar opens up. Is it going to take off in one direction? Is there anything you could do about it if it did? So I think preparing yourself for everything that could possibly happen. This is why you want to live out in the country. Because the city is just like being in the market all the time. It just can't even... I think scalping is the safest kind of thing. And pending, set it and forget it scalps is ultimately the... Of course, to refresh that ticket bank, because if it double wicks, the swing trade, unless you leave that swing trade going and you never move the stop on that one particular trade, so you're using one account to trade multiple trade plans on a single currency. Right, so you can intermingle your scalps with, you should be able to buy 5 pips deep to make 5 pips with a 10 pip stop. I'd say that would be your starting point, is to risk $1 to make 50 cents. Because, I mean, even a scratch and win person could handle this entry level trading. And you just go up from there. And then it's like, do you get a tablet with scripts on it? Do you sit in front of your monitor with your finger on a single 5 standard lots? You have the tick chart up on 5 brokers, and you're looking at you're in a 5 standard lots on one trigger pull. You make $180, you make $300, you make $50, you lose $50, you make $300. I mean, by the end of the day, you got $2,000, right? Is that stressful for you? Is that a lot of work? you're down $300 on the trade. You're looking to make 1,000. I mean, 3 standard lots. I mean, you're going to trade during the news. You're going to wait after the news. You can trade in Asia. Probably Asia spread sucks dick. So now you're going to get a terrible. Now you're underwater just pulling the trigger. You know. Can't compete with the volatility. So why people can't supposedly go up against the big boys is because when the market moves 300 pips in a nanosecond, and you've got even a 200 pip stop, which you thought was be acceptable, like, well, Jesus Christ, I mean, how far can the fucking thing go? And well, apparently it goes that fucking far, and that's just one trade on one day in the whole career of your trading. If you're going to trade it up for a month, so if you trade it for a month, even on a demo, every day you traded something, and whether you blew up the account or not, just the exercise of trading and pulling your trigger, the execution is the key, right? So if you can put strings on a guitar, it doesn't even have to be in tune. Can you go through the motions and even strum it? Then it comes down to, well, am I going to play in tune? I guess the grid for me is the tuning of the, well, how much does that fucking pattern cost to trade? Is that a 300 pip pattern or is that a 50 pip pattern? So I think in patterns is, where does it fit? Like, sure, if you're going to trade this kind of ebb and flow Asian session, well, you got to trade kind of big, right, to make it worth your while. And you got to be pretty savvy, put your orders in. But when the news comes out, you can't fucking trade like that because they'll just shear your head off. Like, I tried to trade the elections of 2016 on a demo. And I was just blown away by how untradeable, with, I don't care what you did, it was 50 pips would just take off on a 50 pip run for 15 seconds and then reverse. So you couldn't trade it. You know, it didn't make sense because you'd have to think about, you'd have to have a separate keyboard with hotkeys on it, ready to go to actually exploit anything from these 2 hours of insanity or whatever. It was fucking nuts. I mean, we're talking about, you gotta look at that data someday. You're talking about fucking insanity. And I'm sure that we have that way of, you know, Carl Allen shit. So, you know, that is the ultimate, you know, that is wheels coming off, and this shit happens. So I'll be buying this plunge here, I suppose, coming into dollar yen. You know, I could just see all my trades in here. Of course, on the daily charts, you know, even up here, if you just bought new lows and sold new highs, you still have that trade plan running. I guess it's hard to stick with your approach because when it stops working, people want to they switch, right? I just think it's the amount of pips it's moving. The volatility is the crime against you know, your holy grail, is the constant wild actions. And as you come up, you know, it might make it back to here one day. And by the end of the week, it might make it back there, but I'm counting on it being one of these zigzag things. And so when the market comes into the grid, actually, if you just print out this piece of paper as a piece of paper and you could just draw on it and imagine all sorts of, oh, well, that would be, fuck, you'd have to be buying on pullbacks here if this is the daily chart. As soon as it climaxes, I'm thinking about, well, let's just put some buy limits in because I don't want to have to decide. I'm going to have enough money in the account to accommodate all the little micro drama, you know, that happens, micro expressions, these micro dramas here. So can you trade that kind of chatter? 80% of the market is going to be like this. I say that on this case, here's a 20% screaming move, then chatter. I'm going to consider it chatter all the way to here until we actually break, and then a screaming move. Well, now it's going to be kind of choppy, and there'll be all sorts of, I suppose, from here to here, you know. But it's about how far it's moved. And the dollar yen the wheels, the heads explode here, and I guess if you got an ATR alert, so if you're, like I said, the robot that's trading the 300 pip swings, or you're trading a 200 pip stop as opposed to 20 pip stop, or you have them commingled, and of course, then you're faced with the task of you're going to trade manually. Are you going to trade 10Ks because you have tendinitis from hitting your mouse? So you can just hit 10Ks now. You can't do 5Ks anymore. What is that level? And I guess you got voice activated. You can have just hotkey assignments for anything. You got 72 hotkeys in the MT4. That's pretty good. I'm sure you could write a macro on top of there's some kind of crazy thing to make it so you brought up a different set of bring up a different profile. I think brings up different hotkeys maybe. So if you save the profile, you could have a hotkey for a different profile and go and switch to a whole different mode of trading too. You could have market orders only setup computer, and you could have a limit entry computer. Same market, maybe different brokers. So ultimately, you can do it any way you want, but you have one currency that you trade different aspects and different brokers. So that this account, like the people that claim they're making money because they only post their winning accounts, well, you do the same thing. You got 10 accounts, and this swing account makes money. It only trades X. It only gets filled rarely, and the other one you're just scalping your ass off, and so you've always got different approaches. One currency, and to make it organized, you have only limits on one account and only market orders on the other account, and you come to find that your limit orders are going to make more money. This is also presupposing you don't overload the size of the limit ticket and put them in too tight and just make it redundantly stupid, as if you're just doubling down like some Marxist state on people, telling them, no, you will have. The fact that you exist is murdering people. Like the fact that you are alive is a threat, because you fucking outdid, like, you're breaking our fucking model here. And of course, this is what the market's doing to all these holy grail bots and all these no nonsense. But yeah, you will catch an occasional 8-period moving average there. I would say that's nice, snug. I used to run the Fibonacci moving averages, so maybe a 3 crosses the 5, or the 3 crosses the 8. So I had this one system. It was a 13 moving average with a 55. It was kind of like a cloud system before there was cloud systems, I think, before I saw that. But I ran that on TradeStation, and looked beautiful. The paint bars, they call them. And that was 2000. You could run that on commodities. So this before forex. But you could trade the D-mark or whatever the fuck it was back then. And so, that would look beautiful. To me, that Hakanashi was kind of like the, look at this, smooths out the data. But then I thought, I don't really trust buying just because it's red or blue, or taking a trigger pull just based on that. It makes sense. It's too stupid. I mean, if it was that easy, if I could tell a robot, listen, dude, when this color, do this color, do that, You're still faced with the decision, what is the outcome of this trade, and why are these indicators going to be so perfect? But here we're just going to use gut, trading, I guess, on gut. It's down how much? So if Bitcoin hits 50,000, would you buy? If Bitcoin comes all the way back to the 40s, would you buy? Or are people going to shit their pants and go, oh my God, look at that. It's doomed. So there's that consideration. So I just want to do this video about the yen here and the euro dollar. Let me just clean up this chart. I gotta get some more coffee. It's just the dust in here. I got issues in my house. We got the pollen. The world's decaying out there. It's falling apart. We got a leak in the ceiling here. A leak in pips. So take a look at this euro. What do you think? This is my top-down view, but top-down, we're going to put tickets in here. I would never go to another time frame. We should be able to place the weekly chart. So we're under the table. Everything's come back to this center point. And now it's like, holy shit. Of course, once again, obviously buying limits is going to be the trick here. So coming into the open, here's a daily chart. My limits are going to come in pretty much below the this pocket here, so that's just easy trade plan. And selling above here is going to be the anything above here I'll sell up in there. So that's about that. And of course, placing them how close, right? So coming in, there'll be a battle if we make it above here. I suppose this will be the trap for the trapping the bulls, because look at we broke out, and of course this is the classic. Oh, really? Oh, that's what happened. Let me see. Oh, gee, by the way, they seem to be sellers up there. Looks like some people just think that's a dumb shit price. So somebody disagrees with you. Oh, call somebody. My broker. He stopped me out. Oh, also these tops up on these little tops here. Oh, the 20 pip windows. So that would be the sell window as the I assume in the dollar view. That as the dollar yen plunges, the euro to the dollar. It's all about the dollar, supposedly. We're going to go up into that. And just the same, we would sell into that. As you drill down to the candles on the daily, it's like, wow. Anything below there was a buy. And of course, there's the deep discount. And you just stop out people that have a stop at this low. Anybody that's, I guess, trading like that, you got to wonder. I put a stop here. We got in here. See, let me explain what I do. We got here, bought in here. I don't think you understand what an order block is. Let me just, you know what an order block is, son, don't you? We talked about that. Remember, I took you to woodshed. I said, if you don't understand order block, I'm gonna kick your ass. But we knew that. So we have a stop here. I told you to tighten the stop up to here, and then God, we missed out today. What'd you say, son? So that was quite the cleared the trees. But of course, having a sell limit starting here was a great idea. Fill, cash out right to the cash out point. It's only 40 pips, but still. And of course, the trailing buy limits on new lows. Nice fill. You don't care about closing prices. You don't care about, sellers, the sell tickets here. Come back to this point. You didn't make it back to here, really. Well, I guess you did. You made it back to the structure. But if you're just buying new lows on a daily, you could just have made 20 pips. And so now, selling new highs, selling here up into next week is going to be the obvious trade for me. Sell, and buy. So get into the future. Next week, the arc of, I used to have this indicator that would do like a projected arc of volatility based on the last price pulse. I do have one. It's called the Spectrum in here. It's called Spectrum. It's in one of these indicators, and it is funny because it changes every hour based on the last price pulse. And some guy built a robot based on that, and I just have it somewhere, but I never run it because he wrote a few versions of it. So it's basically throwing tickets out based on the last. So if you want to build a robot on that, be my guest. That's the Spectrum thing I kind of modified some guy's version of that called support and resistance based on the last true range. So that's it. We're selling up in here, we're buying down in there, and damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead into this abyss, selling abyss coming up. Totally acceptable trade on the weekly. Here's the weekly yen. There's all my trade entries. Looks good on the weekly. The 4 hours is a different story. You can't even see the trades. Right? So here, markets opens, 4 hour chart. They look great here on the 4 hour chart. So they look good on all time frames. I think if you go to the 1 hour chart, it's a little tough, right? Because now you really have to zoom out. It still looks good. I could handle that. Like, and here is very steep. High drama, looks like a tick chart at this point. Very steep market. See, I'm buying down here now. I know people would probably be, all the bears would be happy to ride it for another 20 pips down, but of course I would come in start putting in all sorts of tickets like this, and it would just be, okay, well, I can't even tell you, it's 150k down here at least, easily, and of course these are expiring, but the longer as time goes on. But this is just one day, and if you're going to trade the order block theory stuff, you know, that looks very much scary when you're trading selling the high of that new high. It looks like it's going to keep going on forever. I suppose that's the hardest thing to accept about that, making money from selling new highs, is that when it goes up there, you're like, holy shit, that thing's fucking this is coming after me. Of course, this is Asia spike trap up there, top tick Tommy. And then by the time the day's over, it's up a little bit. But if you got out on the other wicks, so it's very easy to see all these little traps here. So you're going to have to, you got trade plans that basically involve like a 10, 15, 13 pip stop, 18 pip stops, 22 pip stops to make. And you could have all those ratios good in there, but you do have to accept if you run a 13 pip stop and the spread's 3, that you have a 10 pip stop. But clustering your tickets so that you have these power, these big iceberg orders down here, these big fucking rip your face off, like you got a 20 pip stop on maybe this ticket rack, and there's 10k, or here's another slot of, there's 22k sitting in here waiting to get filled, and the exits for that could be anything, but hopefully good ratios to make 40 pips back to where you're at now. I mean, when you drop it, you would certainly say, the greediest trade was, let's make it back to where the price is when I drop. Take this guy over, drop it here. It's going to have to make sense from a balance standpoint of a pending ticket. Because at the market, certainly you could come in every 5 minutes, it's going up and sell. Like, are you selling now? This is the end of the day on Friday. If you're long, you're probably going to cash out as soon as you make it back to this, or anywhere on the way there. And this is still a 20 pip grid here, so you could make still 10 pips. Can you make 10 pips with a 5 pip stop? Is that a good ratio? Could you trade like that all day long? And when we get up here, are the sellers coming in? Right, the other question, are the sellers coming in up here? And it is, in a sense, easier on the 15 because you can see that if you would have put a sell limit here, right, on this order block or this wick tip, that's a killer entry because you put your sell limit in a very, you have to be here for this trade. You cannot put the sell limit in you have to wait for this to happen for you to put the sell limit in. That's why you can't, you need this lonely wick, you need that fractal to place your sell limit on. Because that is the supply zone you're selling. You have to wait for this to put in as the market's down here. When it closes down here, for you to put the sell limits, you're always trading against. When the market's down here, you put your sell limits in here. Now, this will save you a lot of ICT hell. Just look at this. If the market's here, you put your buy limits in here. Now, granted, that was some punishment, but you had to know that that was the, on the 15-minute chart, I'll save you a lot of ICT hell. On the 15-minute chart, you're trading all these supply and demand zones, which change in dimension. So if you're going to sell above here, you got to wait until here to cash out. That's a 15-minute. It's going to take you an hour and a half, 2 hours to make that money back. And this is up a little bit. Sometimes you're up a little bit and it comes back to here. But are you trading this or are you trading this? Like, is your target this? You're going to get chopped to death, but here your sell limit's never filled, though. It's not a perfect world. You got sell limits here that never filled, but these filled. So you're aggressively getting in on this one turnaround point. You got sell limits up here. When this thing tanks, there's no fill. Sell limits. Here's your only kind of little mini vac sell limits, but then really how much money are we talking about? If you're doing the buy side is kind of the same, but you still have to pick a target, a series of targets to survive this as a day trader. Because sure, this is a great place to buy, and actually went a little bit lower for another buy, which is even a bigger target. So we get this initial scalp, but you can't have a target here for this entry. You may, and this is why if you're commingling the tickets, you buy that, you buy this rip, you buy this one, which now surviving this, you got paid until here to the floor and beyond into, and this could be a news event, probably is. Or just the fact that, here, like this Asian plunge here, this may be enough money for you to say, oh, dude, we just made like 30 pips on this fucking entry with a 10 pip stop. This is like a brilliant fucking Asian European, whatever the fuck. This is Asia. It's 5 p.m. So this is 9 o'clock. And nice trade. All right, now if we try to do that again, we're going to get clobbered, right? We buy here looking for this monster target. We buy this plunge. We buy here. Okay. But you've got to have that 10 pip target now. You're going to hit that 20 pip target. But you'd have to be in that world. And this is the problem with the 15-minute chart, is that if your system's really sensitive, it's buying here, of course. Right? You're under the floor, you're buying a little bit. But if you're just gridding it out, if you just put a linear grid in as the market comes down, regardless of all these little new lows, if you just put a linear grid in, and as it keeps on bouncing, you're just plucking it off. So the market's taking you into a trade. You have no idea what's going to happen. You just know you're buying low. And you see the market start to do this. And you go, I'm just going to take that off and cash out. I'm not expecting a 20 pip move. I'm not expecting. So you have to lower your expectations. Kind of like the lockdown, the new normal, where you basically, your shit's just sitting on the dock of the bay. But it's about time these people took a break. I think they worked too hard. So they should all be home trading in the same direction that I'm trading. So support the market, of course. You have to worry about these traders. They're coming after these traders now. And so these targets, of course, on the 30-minute chart, when you look at the 15-minute chart, your head explodes a little bit when you look at all the trading possibilities. But you have a half-hour chart, it kind of, the 1 hour chart is probably the most civilized time frame. And you can see that selling here in that supply zone on the 1 hour. There's less ambiguity here. That we just have good old-fashioned new highs on the 1 hour, right? So it looks like a spiky, wow, look at that beautiful order block up there. But see, really all it really is, and this is the sad fact, is that all this order block stuff's bullshit. Because really, yeah, sure, there is. So you sold here, you ran a trailing stop. Yeah, there is one robot out there doing, well, cancel, replace. Oh, we got stopped out. We sold here, and we made this much money, right? And also the just the immense amount of people buying here, and this is easier to see. This is Asia. Maybe you missed this move. So why would you just put buy limits here, right? All the way down. And if you put them all the way down to here, at some point, every one of those tickets, if you didn't get stopped out, was a winner. So that is a way more civilized time frame. 15-minute chart, sure. You're a sniper, I got it. But my lord, you know, if you can see that just selling new highs from the last hour, right? Trailing sell limits on the top of that. Kind of aggressive, I suppose, but what about you have a tight stop? You're just kind of picking up that. You got a top become bottom in time on the 1 hour. This is your classic bottoms become tops on time, on closing prices, and you take this trade. Also, maybe your 8-period moving averages, you know, all that stuff stacking up, but then, of course, like I'd be long right now. You got to be long. This could drop lower, and so could the dollar yen coming into, I'm sorry, this is the dollar yen. So as this comes into the opening, expected to go lower? It's going to go lower probably. But will it go up and then go down? Would you sell here? So I wouldn't sell here. 1 hour chart. I'd rather sell above this, right? I'd rather sell this 20 pip window to make the 20 pips, high probability 20 pip to here, and ride it down to cashing out below here, and I just call that the trade, because when it starts going below here, I'm a buyer. I can't help it. I mean, just feel like, you know, this is, if you, especially looking at the larger time frame, which I can see in my head that, yeah, we could drop lower, and my tickets are stacked up, waiting to get filled Sunday night. And the daily chart, I wouldn't change a thing on the daily chart. But watching it unfold, and then whatever happens, you know, coming into next week, it could be an obliteration. And the stock market, you would think it syncs up. These things, markets sync up. But you see Bitcoin failed at the breakout point, trap people for a $6,000 trap up there. And you have the kind of the reconciling, everything's kind of coming back to set point here. Got 2 months left in the end of the year, and it's for all the hand wringing as far as as far as people just freaking out. That nature finds a way, and people. There's underground markets. There's the bitcoins. There's the Ditcoins, the altcoins, the stable coin, the coupons. Don't forget your classic first fiat currency is the coupons at the store, you know, to buy a product, right? So you're being sucked into the corporate Borg by whipping out your coupon book. Aren't you just supporting the corporate insanity? So people that take a purist view of that, it's pretty cute. They're really slicing it a little too thin, don't you think? Look, this is where people end up. And the purists, and the problem with trading is it attracts intelligent people, and they think, oh, I can just certainly just put on my thinking cap and get myself out of this by designing the ultimate trading approach. But it is the approach that you could, it's how you approach the market. So are you going to just dive in to the Bitcoin, or are you going to put in your limits at 50 and 40 and 30 and wait for a bounce and just trade as a trader? Or are you going to buy the Bitcoin here because you heard it's going to 1 million? Because look, it just made new highs, and look at this and look at that. As you pull back to 55, what so the big test is always ahead of us as far as, okay, is that a trap? And I think the big time frame charts are always telling so the big institutional money moves very slow. In other words, these people are in trades for fucking 5 years. And I mean, these are big creeper gear funds that don't really... so it's pointless to talk about that, because who's got that kind of time to sit in that fucking trade with that much money to make X amount of dollars? It's ridiculous stupidity. You kind of want to, if you're retail, what do you mean? Retail trader means you're trading privately for a living, or you're trading privately. So I know you people don't want to work for these prop firms and stuff, but Jesus Christ, really. I mean, I don't know. It's still you still have daddy. you still have, you're gonna trade. Don't be a pussy. Just trade your own. Trade your own money. I don't know. I'm so against prop firm trading, like people with the 5%ers and shit. I'm like, okay, that's a club. Okay, I got you. You're lonely, but I don't know. You show up at the prop firm, like I said, the hooker prop firm. In other words, social dating prop firm where you sit on your lap while you trade and talk about the first scalp that pops up and all these things that could happen. That would be well worth it, and that would be, forget the Playboy Mansion. We're talking about fucking prop firm, hooker mansion, MT4 mansion. And just every room's a different color, and this is like, listen to this kind of music while we scalp in here, and Johnny's got his crack whore with him this morning, and let's move on to the other room we got here. I really need that. We need more of that, so I'm going to get a dollhouse, I think, this winter, and use the cameras that you go through the plumbing with, You have to, like, when they get to the 4K there, I'd take my fisheye 4K and run it through the dollhouse. I create disturbing artwork for the walls. But that's why I see the winter. This is going to be a do-it-yourself Christmas. Apparently, you're going to have to build your own fucking dollhouse this time around. Okay, so it's 9:30 in the morning. The stock market's about to open. It's 9:30 in the morning. Yeah, so it should be a fun week. Looking forward to the drama. There'll be plenty of drama next week, and you just can't believe what you're seeing, can you? I mean, you forget going to the movies, because the movies are now like a stable item. And for the let's say every horror movie, somebody throws up in a horror movie. You notice this situation? Okay, so I'm gonna go to my movie vault now and watch some more completely. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, let's make sure the guns are loaded, please. I mean, how do you fuck that up in the year? They put a man on the moon. Like, you can launch a fucking liberal into space, but you cannot fucking stop somebody from shooting somebody on a fucking movie set. Okay, we got a problem.